Hiya! Welcome! So this is a contest entry for a channel I've just started subscribing to. It's a VC channel based here in the United Kingdom, and I'm talking about Ian at Ranking the Obscure. And I wanted to jump on this contest because it intrigued me a lot, the way he wanted people to enter this. And being from an era where the format that this contest is based around was the predominant music format for playback and of course for recording, I couldn't resist getting involved with this. So thank you to Ian for running this contest. I urge you to go and give Ranking the Obscure a sub. You have to be a subscriber to his channel to enter this. I'll quickly explain what he'd like you to do. So he's called it a getting to know you contest, but through the medium of music. And what he wants you to do is to compile one side of a theoretical 60-minute cassette tape with some of your favourite songs, your favourite music that maybe says something about you and about your life. I've hopefully played by the rules as best as possible with my choices. What I've done, and you'll see on screen, is I've put all my song choices into an Apple Music playlist. Now, I'm not an Apple Music streamer, I just have the app on my phone, my iPad, etc., with hundreds of my old digital files. So this isn't something that's publicly available to stream, this is just something I've done just so that it kind of looks nice on the video more than anything. I did actually think about physically compiling a cassette tape for this, but as you can see, wrong tapes. These are C90s and it needs to be a C60. I know I could have just stopped after 30 minutes of music, but if I was going to do the whole compiling a cassette tape, then I would have wanted the correct prop, really. But never mind. He says to compile 30 minutes of music. Now, he don't mind you going over to 31 minutes worth because the majority of C60 tapes back in the day did have an extra minute or so on each side. So it's basically 31 minutes of music. Now, it took me quite a while to sort out mine because I was going over a few times, so I kind of rejigged things, took one or two out, put others in that maybe wouldn't have got in. And this is by no means an exhaustive look at some of my all-time favourite tracks. Obviously, every one that I've picked here does mean something to me and is one of my favourite songs for some reason or another, but there's loads that I actually missed out. Some of my all-time favourites that I refused to put on this theoretical, this imaginary cassette, or this side A of this cassette, because, and it's a bit of a habit I've had for a lot of years, especially back in the days when I used to download a lot of music so that I could listen to it on phones, iPods, etc., was that I've got a lot of extended versions and I wanted to just have a load of tracks that was either the radio edit or was just kind of 4 minutes or under, really. I think there's one or two that go over 4 minutes, but altogether there's 9 tracks in my C30 or C60 side A, and it says that the total running time's 31 minutes, so these 9 songs should fit on one side of a 60-minute cassette. I think this contest runs till, Ian said, 22nd of March, so there's a little bit of time for you to still get involved. And the prize, I think he said, was £50 Amazon credit. Doubted myself now. I did watch his video back, and of course I'm going to leave a link for his contest announcement video at the very top of this description, so please go and have a look at that, give him a sub, and then enter this as well if it's something that interests you. Right then, so let me get going with my 9 songs here that I think, listening to these, you'll kind of get to know a wide range of my musical tastes, and I'll explain why I've picked some of these. Well, I'll explain why I've picked them all, really. So track number 1 is the 1994 remix of Bizarre Love Triangle by New Order. Had to have New Order on this compilation tape. They're my all-time favourite band. Everyone who knows me knows that. Bizarre Love Triangle is probably still, I don't know, sometimes it switches between first and second, but it's either my first or my second all-time favourite New Order single. I thought this 94 version was a good version to have, A, because it qualified from being in my Apple Music digital library, so I was able to put it into the playlist, and also it's not too long a track, so it's not eating up room on this side of the tape. So, brilliant song. If anyone mentions that ridiculously awful cover by Frente that was popular in America and, of course, Australia, because I think that's where Frente was from, I've never liked that. It's funny how one song can be one of your all-time favourites and then the same song but covered by a different band. You just can't stand it. I can't stand that Frente version, but anyway, I'm going off topic a bit there. Number 2 on the C30 or C60 tape is I'll Find My Way Home by John and Vangelis. Oh, by the way, I'm holding my iPad up here because I've took a screenshot of the playlist so that I don't forget what I'm talking about here. But yeah, John and Vangelis, I'll Find My Way Home. Now, I've chose this because it brings back some really early memories of listening to taped compilations that my dad made off Radio 1 on his old Sony stereo. Really good sounding hi-fi that was. It only had a record player, a tape deck, and an FM, I think probably medium wave and long wave as well, but he never bothered listening to those radio. But really, really nice, rich quality in that Sony hi-fi that he bought only a couple of years after I was born, so probably in the early 80s he got it, and we had that for like 20 odd years. My dad, certainly after I was born, he didn't really buy music very much. He'd just tape it off the radio, and to be fair, Radio 1 sounded so good, the quality of it, that FM stereo quality sounded so rich on Sony, and you know, it had all the Dolby noise reduction for the recordings and stuff, that you know, I kind of don't blame him. I mean, I do think it's kind of mean just to tape everything off the radio, but you know, that's what a lot of people did. My dad wasn't exactly in a minority. And I never used to like I Find My Way Home by John and Vangelis, but I love it now. I used to hear it. I think it might have been a track that my dad taped more for my mum than for himself. He taped a lot of stuff that I knew only he would like and my mum wouldn't, but I get the feeling that was more one of my mum's favourites than his, but I don't know. I never asked either of them who actually really liked that track. Could have been both of them, but I'm guessing probably my mum. Beautiful song. Track number 3 is one that I swapped out for a different track by this band. I was going to include Panic by The Smiths, and then because that's only like 2 minutes-ish, give or take a few seconds, I was struggling to find another track that ran so short, like about 2 minutes or preferably under, to put at the end of the tape. I wanted to pick Panic because there again, I remember hearing that loads when I was young because my dad taped it off the Top 40 or off John Peel or Annie Nightingale or somebody on Radio 1, and he played that tape to death. And he always used to be singing the chorus and things like that to me. But I decided I'll swap it out because There Is a Light That Never Goes Out is a longer track, and it just means that I can get to my 31 minutes on this tape. That's something that I discovered more as a teenager, really, There Is a Light. My dad probably had it. It's not one that I can remember from childhood, though. Whereas There Is a Light, I remember getting really into that song in particular, and more of the Smiths' work generally in my kind of mid to late teens in the 90s. So number 4 is one that I've just loved ever since it came out, really, and it's not something that I've either disliked at first and then grown to like, or vice versa. It's something that I've always rated as one of my all-time favourite singles, and it's Everywhere by Fleetwood Mac. Little Lies was another one that was a contender, because I just think those are the two absolute best Fleetwood Mac singles ever, and they're both on the Tango in the Night album. It's a really strong album, that, actually, because it's got other great songs on it like Seven Wonders, which I think came out as a single, but that didn't do as well. But Everywhere, I think, takes it for me, relating to Fleetwood Mac. Just a fantastic pop single from, what was it, around late 87, early 88, when Tango in the Night came out. Brilliant stuff. Number 5, these aren't numbered, so I'm hoping I don't miss any or misnumber them, is One and One by Robert Miles featuring Maria Naylor. You'll see all these on screen anyway, so if I'm getting anything wrong, then just look to your right. Came out in 1996 at I was going to say height, but really kind of like the start of the trance boom that kind of carried on till around year 2000, maybe a bit after. I just always found that an absolutely, not only is it like a beautiful song, a beautiful love song, and it was a cover version, and I can't remember who originally recorded it. I'll try and remember to put it on screen, but just the Robert Miles and Maria Naylor version. I remember at the time it came out, I was a big one for making compilations of my own, but I was buying a lot of CD singles particularly, and I put that on a mixtape. We didn't really call them mixtapes back then, it's like an American thing. That I put that on a compilation tape that me and my then girlfriend would listen to a lot when she was out driving us to Nottingham, Derby, or wherever we were going really. My girlfriend at the time was quite a lot older than me. She was my first serious girlfriend. I was like 16, not yet 17 at this point. So that brings back some fond memories, and I still think it's an absolute dance music classic as well. That I'm trying to think if I've ever heard the original. I must have done at some point. Track number 7 is Elephant Stone by Stone Roses. This is a bit sort of like in the Smiths vein, where this was music, although it had come out in the late 80s, I wasn't really getting into stuff like this until the 1990s. Stone Roses, I'd listened to them a lot sort of in the early 90s with stuff that was in the charts, but Elephant Stone, because that was quite an early thing for them, and it was like an indie chart hit, but it didn't really do anything in the normal chart. That's something I didn't discover until further on into that decade, and Peter Hook of New Order produced it. There's a couple of different versions. I think the one that I've got on here, although you can't hear it obviously, is the one that I actually like the best, and the other one might be quite long as well. So I'm not sure which version exactly Peter Hook produced, whether it was the one I like or the one I don't like quite as much, but the one I like, I think, is the greatest Stone Roses track of all time, and I think underrated really if you're a Stone Roses fan. People always seem to go for the obvious tracks when it comes to the favourite Stone Roses, and Elephant Stone often seems to be forgotten about, to me anyway. I could be wrong. The penultimate track on my side A of this C60 tape is one that probably not many people in the vinyl community are going to be familiar with, but it is my all-time favourite track in this genre, the genre being happy hardcore, that's right, and the track being Elysium by Scott Brown. I think technically this might be classed as Elysium Plus. There's been so many different mixes and versions and re-recordings and edits of Elysium, I can't even keep track. I've got a load just digitally. Scott Brown, Scottish hardcore producer. He's done quite a lot of sort of what I would call not happy hardcore, sort of more like the hard style stuff that I'm not as keen on. But Elysium, just because of the melody to it, is proper happy hardcore to me, but it's not too cheesy. There's a lot of happy hardcore that's like quite heavy on the cheese, with the chipmunk vocals and the sort of cheapo sounding piano-y keyboard, but Elysium just sounds quality. It's like the Harrods of hardcore to me, Elysium, so I urge you to check that out if you've never heard it. And the final track, track number 9, which takes us up to 31 minutes according to Apple Music anyway, is one I wanted to include something that was fairly recent, and it's not that recent really. For me, in my head, it feels like it only came out last week, but it was like, I don't know, about 10, 11 years ago I think, and it's Girls Fall Like Dominoes by Nicki Minaj. That, I think, was my favourite song of the 2010s. I don't know, Nicki Minaj, I've had no interest in her before or since really, but I just think that is an absolutely magnificent hip-hop track. It samples the song Dominoes by the Big Pink. They were like an indie band from the 2000s, I think. She just turns it into this sort of feminist kind of hip-hop anthem, really. The lyrics aren't the best because, like, she just starts name-dropping all her celebrity friends after a while, and it's like, oh, okay, you're just showing off, really, about who you're mates with. But just the sound of the sample and the bass line to that makes it, I think it may be up there as my favourite hip-hop track of all time, and I'm someone who's listened to a lot of Tupac and Notorious B.I.G., NWA, Public Enemy, etc, etc. I don't even want to call it a guilty pleasure because I just think that's a fantastic track. I wish it had come out on vinyl. The album it was off, that hasn't been out on vinyl, or if it has, it's not included that, and although it kind of got released as a digital single, there was no video made for it, which really surprised me because it sounds like an instant worldwide #1 hit to me, Girls Fall Like Dominoes, but they just didn't really release it properly back in the early 2010s, whereas I think it really would have topped the charts all over the world if they'd done a video for it and maybe given it a physical release. If not on vinyl, then on CD. You know, it's brilliant. So that is my side A of a C60 audio cassette that I've compiled, albeit I compiled it on Apple Music. All those tracks, you can find them easy on whatever streaming service you've got or YouTube. So if you want to listen to any of them and give me some feedback, then please do. I want to say thank you all for watching. Special thanks not only to Ian at Ranking the Obscure for running this contest, but also to my wonderful subscribers and generous patrons. Please see my Patreon link, Facebook group link, and all the rest in the description text box. I'm gonna go now. Might have a listen to my 31-minute compilation here. I don't enter these contests because I'm desperate to win. You know, I enter them because it's nice to discover other channels from doing this. I've discovered Ian, who has collaborated quite a few times with a good friend of mine, Richard McCook, so it's nice that just I'm gradually meeting more people within the vinyl community via the medium of contest entry, and I do hope that all of you will join me again next time for my next VC contest entry and music related video. Cheers everyone. See ya!